The Eskom hearing before Parliament's Standing Committee on Public Accounts, that SCOPA, has wrapped up for today. The power utility says it will ensure an independent panel is appointed to look into corruption allegations. The board has admitted that the former CEO Andre de Ruyter's interview with eNCA earlier this year embarrassed the power utility and that it did not have the private intelligence report commissioned by de Ruyter and paid for by Business Leadership South Africa. Well, let's discuss today's hearing, get some reaction now from civil society organization Outa. Wayne Duvenage. Good afternoon, Wayne. I mean, just listening to some of what came out in that grilling of the Eskom board members, including the former chair, Professor Malihapuru Makgoba, and other senior executives, I was just left wondering, I mean, what was actually going on at Eskom at the time for them not to have been appraised, as they claimed, by the CEO about this private investigation and its findings?
Yeah, it does concern one, and I think there's a lot of obfuscation and a lot of smoke and mirrors and blaming of who should have done what is the proper governance matters or processes that should have been followed. But I think if you start unpacking the environment in which the CEO and his team are trying to operate, the political interference that has continuously taken place at Eskom for many years, one can imagine that he has the executive powers to do investigations, to pay for them. But yes, the board needs to be appraised, and maybe he didn't follow due process, or he could have done more. I think he's done quite a lot in involving or in informing various authorities right up to ministerial level. But what more could he have done? And I think we sit here with the hindsight, the exact science of hindsight now, saying, well, what should happen going forward? And what we, Dan, get a sense is that government isn't, and the board and various of those are not taking this matter seriously. There's an intelligence report. Intelligence is just information. From there, you get these powers that can subpoena records, bank records, and put a full-blown investigation, independent, external professionals to get to the bottom of that. We don't sense that there's that willingness. And in fact, we see in Parliament how one party, using its dominance, ruled out a full investigation into Eskom, while every other party voted for it. So there's something there that needs to happen and be investigated, and we do not see an appetite for this to happen. And everybody's blaming everybody else. And it's from a citizen perspective point of view, this is not good for this country. And it grows this trust deficit between citizens and government.
And you have Mpho Makwana, the chairman of Eskom, saying in Parliament today, in their view, Mr. de Ruyter has embarrassed Eskom, or that interview he did, rather, with my colleague Annika Larsen here on eNCA, embarrassed Eskom.
Well, if he feels embarrassed, then I think he should be embarrassed for the fact that it got to that. Andre de Ruyter is giving information. If I was the board and the chair, I would not have asked him to leave straight away. If it's his view that they're putting the organization into disrepute or into a bad light, that organization has been in a bad light for many years. Nothing's going to improve it other than the board taking Andre de Ruyter to one side and embracing him and saying, okay, there's something serious.
Yeah, sorry to come in. You make a very good point, which one of the MPs tried to make, to say, why did you let this man who had mentioned these serious corruption allegations, why did you let him go so quickly instead of keeping him so he can give you a comprehensive report? But they let him go. And that question came up from one of the MPs. It's a very relevant point, I think.
Yeah, it is a very, very relevant point, because while he's in your employ and you're paying his salary, he comes to work and you sit him down and say, let us understand where you came from with this approach. What is going on? You don't throw the individual out because you're embarrassed. You seek clarity. You bring in the relevant authorities and you show diligence and very clear, authentic approach to dealing with this issue. And that's not come through, and still not coming through in these interviews with SCOPA. This is what really makes us angry. And I put it to you, Dan, that even organizations like Outa, We could, if Eskom said, engage with us, Outa, can you help? I can tell you now that with the programs and systems we have, we could show them all the people who work in Eskom, for Eskom at management levels throughout the organization, who are doing business with Eskom, or whose family members are involved in companies that are doing business with Eskom. That's a good start to rooting out corruption and dealing with this issue. But they don't want to go down those roads, and there's an issue there.
Do you think then that this is one aspect that you've just mentioned, this example you've just used, that the independent panel that now Eskom told Parliament today is going to be appointed to look into corruption allegations should focus on?
How independent is that panel? Yes, absolutely, they should. And are there any civil society organizations represented on that panel? And if not, why not? Because we have an interest in this stuff as well. So, we keep putting it out there. Engage with civil society, engage with people who have understanding of how corruption works, what the modus operandi is, and we can give you some excellent solutions. The question is, will you take the pill that you have to take, as bitter as it may taste, to seriously get to the bottom of corruption at Eskom? I don't believe they do. There's not a political will to do so. That is the big question that we have here.
I don't mean to tell you what to do as Outa, but you could put up your hand, as you've explained, that you've got the capabilities to assist, to say, hey, Eskom, we had you in Parliament today. You're going to set up an independent panel. Please, can you include Outa?
Yeah, well, here it is verbally in public television, and we'll write to them. It's sad that we even have to ask. There should be, and not just us. Maybe it's not us. Maybe it's Corruption Watch. Maybe there's a lot of good organizations out there. But I know that civil society hat in that panel is going to ask some really tough questions and make sure that the panel is independent and it's looking at other avenues and is thinking outside the box when it gets down to how we go about this investigation.
Yeah, what concerns me is what you said earlier as well about the levels of trust or confidence in the system, where you are saying you don't know how independent this panel will be, and one could take it further and say, will we accept its findings as well once it's set up? I don't know if there'll be transparency by Eskom to say these are the individuals or organizations who are going to be part of this independent panel, because that might assist in changing how we view Eskom currently.
Well, exactly. The more transparent, the more you involve civil society oversight organizations, the more you start to grow the trust between government state-owned entities, and these various things that have to be done. It just gets worse and worse all the time. So we keep asking and we keep suggesting to government. And by the way, the president in one of his SONA addresses says to his authorities, we need to engage and work more with civil society. But every time civil society gets involved or puts up its hand and says, hey guys, we've got some thoughts, we've got some ideas, we've got some suggestions, we're not invited in, where the doors are closed. And I guess, again, we keep coming back to this political will, this political desire to be sincere about getting to the bottom of the problems that we have. Is not just the corruption, there's gross inefficiency and systemic problems that are unfolding. And it's across the board, then, from the road accident fund to matters in Department of Transport, to the the list is long. And I don't know what it is, but this government really just has an issue with I think they think that they have all the answers and they know how to do things and fix things, and they don't need the help. Well, that's a sad situation to be in.
Yeah, hopefully somebody at Eskom is listening and say, for this independent panel to really get to the bottom of the corruption allegations that have been leveled by or exposed by the former CEO Andre de Ruyter in an interview with Annika Larsen here on eNCA, would be a good move to make. Thank you very much for your time this afternoon and for your views. Wayne Duvenage from Outa, just reacting to what we saw happening in Parliament earlier today when Eskom board and some senior executive appeared before Parliament Standing Committee.